BioLine Gold, nature's crop stimulant. So as an overview, I'll start with just talking a little bit, expanding on what you got from the video on what it is, what are biostimulants, some additional information in general on humic and what's different about our BioLine Gold versus a lot of the other fulvic product that might be on the market. So as the video alluded, we take this spent mushroom compost, spent mushroom substrate. It's an organic matter that is available, and there's through that composting process as well as the growth of the mushroom, that humification is amplified in that. And what we do is we just use water to extract it, and you get this crude extract that is there. That crude extract would be similar to if you said a compost tea type of a product. The difference with what we do and where all the real innovation and IP is that compost tea is great as an on-farm type of a thing, but if it's a product that you're trying to mix with other fertilizers and ship and store and have those types of compatibilities, it can become challenging to store, lifetime, shelf life, settling, swelling, fouling, all that other stuff. The biostimulant kind of sphere contains, obviously, a big part of it is these organic acids that we just talked about. Then you've got all the microbial and what we call the inoculants and such. You have all the other types of extracts, in particular seaweed, kelp type extracts, amino acids, as well as then all the hydrolase and derivative products of different protein. So it's a good breadth of products that are there. A little bit, this came from the Biostimulant Coalition. We are a member of the Biostimulant Coalition as well, and we are working towards the criteria and standards that are going to be used to basically regulate biostimulants in the U.S. Yes?
Mo, I have a question on the biopesticide
yes.
versus biostimulant.
Yes.
If I understand that correctly, a biopesticide would have to be
EPA
registered.
Absolutely, still.
A biostimulant
is now looking at being USDA. That was part, you hit bang on, absolutely. So there is two coalitions that are right now working very closely together. There's the Biopesticide Industrial Association and the Biostimulant Coalition. What are humic substances? That video spoke a little bit about it. Basically, there is this natural process. It can happen aerobically or anaerobically. It could be in bogs and so on. It could be in your soil. And this process is humification. It leads to these three classes. The humans are not soluble at all. They are part of your stable soil organic matter. Humic acid and fulvic acid. The humic acid is only soluble in alkaline. Fulvic acid is soluble in across the whole spectrum. Whether you're pH 0 or 14, it's soluble. And the humic acid is more like in that order of 100 years or so kind of lifespan. And whereas the fulvic acid is in the tens of years type of a lifespan. Meaning, fulvic acid itself doesn't readily biodegrade. The biology in your soil doesn't eat. What it does is it facilitates facilitates that exchange, and it facilitates the microbial growth by feeding it the sugars and the other foods that it needs that are in the soil. It itself is not biodegradable very easily. So fulvic and humic, there's some big differences. Number one is size. Humic acids are much larger. As a result, they're not as mobile in the soil solution. That combined with their pH stability tend to have them lock up a bit more in the soil. They're not like as mobile in the soil solution, so they don't get taken up in the roots, or if you foliar spray, it's not going to get into your leaves, and obviously it won't go into the cell. Fulvic acid is small enough that it can go through the roots of the plant, small enough that it can go foliar through the leaves of the plant, and it's small enough to actually go into the cell of not just the plant but the biology. So just like your nutrients are crossing that cell boundary and exchanging, and sugars are being given off by that cell in that process, so will fulvic be going in and out of the cell. So that's a big difference there. Again, where our BioLine Gold versus other Leonardite, it's more active. Our process takes that, isolates that most active fractions off that spectrum. So there's a much higher activity. It's highly concentrated. We take it to the maximum solubility of the fulvic acid in our concentrate, above which point it just comes out of solution, basically. It's highly compatible. You can mix it with Roundup, many different types of fungicides, fertilizers. So the whole idea is not require that end user, that farmer, to have to do another pass or a separate pass or any kind of, you can tank mix it with whatever you're putting in and use it in whatever starter application and foliar application that you want. And it's got that long shelf life. 2-3 years, no issues. Nothing happens, your bottle doesn't foul, nothing goes bad, it's all good.
Mo, what's Leonardite?
Very good question. So Leonardite is a coal. It's a typical coal that's found in the U.S. It's found in New Mexico, along the Dakotas, and so on. What happened is about 100 some odd years ago, these very highly oxidized soft top layers, which aren't the best for energy production, they're oxidized layers at the top of the coal deposits. Some people started characterizing these and saw benefits, everything from livestock benefits to if you put 500 pounds of the stuff in an acre, you're going to granulate it and powderize it and put it on. They saw some bump, they saw some benefits to it. Then around the turn of the century, some number of different people started patenting these extraction processes, high temperature, high pressure, caustic, acidic, chemical processes where they actually solubilize the coal. So they make the coal into a liquid. And once you do that, you solubilize that coal, and they started characterizing it. They found these same humic and fulvic acid-like products in that coal. So the reason why we compare ourselves to that is 99% of the industry is sourced from that Leonardite product, and we are not. We're not from coal.
Hi. My name is Neil. I'm the sales director for BioLine, and I'm also an agronomist on CCA in Ontario. I've been in ag retail for about 30 years. And I'm here today because apparently it takes 4 Canadians to do what 2 Americans can do. Or 1 in the case of getting it. So we talk about an in-furrow application of BioLine bulb. That's just one of the ways it can be used. You get improved seed germination. You have to remember that when we talk about the characteristics of fulvic acid, it's that vehicle that transports nutrients back and forth. So if it can feed bugs, it can feed plants, it can go directly into the cells of the root structure and into the plant itself because the molecule is very small and it can carry a pack of nutrients and minerals with it because the CEC is so high. So those are very important things to remember when we're talking about what this actually does in the crop. So it promotes rapid and even emergence. When the seed is germinating, you've got a whole bunch of things going on, right? You've got a coleoptile being grown, you've got root structures being grown. This poor little seed that we put in the ground and let alone is struggling to make hundreds of different kinds of cells all at the same time, to grow in 2 different directions, to reach sunlight, to get nutrients out of the soil, and it's doing all of these things at once. And it needs help to do that. It needs some form of bus to carry those nutrients to the plant that you put in the soil to begin with when you did your fertilization or you used your SP1 or you used whatever product you used. So this acts as the nutrient bus going right into the plant. Okay?
Is this a liquid that would go in a pop-up?
Yep. Yes. Absolutely. Good. Hold that thought. So it helps to fight stress in the early stage because one of the characteristics of having a good, healthy, nutrient-filled plant is that it's as healthy as it possibly can be, right? So it's getting as much out of itself as it can. And healthy plants naturally resist disease stress, they naturally resist insect damage, they recover more easily from environmental stressors. So that's the whole idea behind using fulvic acid, is pack the nutrients into the plant and create a very healthy plant, and it will handle the stresses involved in whatever happens. Increased nutrient uptake, I just talked about that, so that the nutrient efficiency goes up, and improving the plant health, the vigor, the vibrancy, the robustness of the plant and its structures, and ultimately crop yield, because what it does in terms of the crop yield is that quality of the end grain, right? So when we're talking soybeans, it's not just more pods, it's better beans, better quality, heavier beans. We're talking corn, we're talking heavier kernels, more sugar, and end-use nutrient density that we're all starting to talk about more and more every day. Increased root growth and branching, that's a natural end result of more nutrients leading to better soil structures. So a bigger root ball, more root mass, larger, thicker primaries, more secondaries, and more hair roots. So overall, more root surface area to contact the soil, and therefore more availability of nutrients on the overall, or touching those root structures at any one time, right? So, and then the fulvic acid helps transfer those nutrients into the root structures themselves. Stress resistance. Healthy plant, less stress. Okay. It boosts the plant's natural defenses and helps the crop gives it the ability to withstand drought stress, soaking stress. I mean, if it gets completely anaerobic, there's not much you can do. But certainly, drought stress, heat, toxicity, it washes out toxic chemicals from the plant, because I said it was a continual exchange. We call it dynamic exchange. This molecule is in there and it's trading nutrients. It's like a waitress in a restaurant, right? It's bringing all this food all the time. It's a waitress with 1,400 arms. So it's shuffling this stuff in front of you all the time. Helps with the soil microbial activity. Everything eats. Everything requires nutrients, and fulvic acid is a nutrient transfer mechanism. So, of course, the microbiology in the soil, all the little bugs take advantage of this as well, and they eat off of the molecules and take those nutrients away and leave other things for the fulvic acid to the plant cells. So, as far as application is concerned, when do you apply this stuff? And how do you apply it? There's really no wrong way of doing it. It's a liquid. It mixes with everything known as far as we can tell, as far as fertilizer mixes, pesticide mixes, fungicide mixes, anything that you're currently putting on either through a sprayer or through a liquid applicator on a seeder, it'll go through fine. It won't have any antagonistic reactions with any of those products. So our recommended application at this point is about 10 ounces an acre in furrow. This is for corn. 10 ounces an acre in furrow, and that can go in with your starter or however you're getting your initial fertilization in with your seed. This is not a biological organism. It doesn't die. Nothing eats it. All it does is it exchanges nutrients all the time. That's its only role.
Hey, Neil?
Yes,
would that also possibly increase the activity of whatever product we're putting on in that foliar application?
Yeah, absolutely. We were talking about boron earlier. So boron's a good example. If you're using a fulvic acid with boron, you should actually probably drop your boron rates, because there's a chance you could reach a toxic level earlier, because this will enhance the biological availability of that nutrient. Now, if you do get there, a follow-up application, foliar application of fulvic acid will help wash that toxicity away. So it works on both ways. It works on both levels. The applications of BioLine Gold is something that assists plant are myriad. Anything that grows uses fulvic acid. So this can be used on any crop: grapes, vegetables, tomatoes, hay, pasture. Anything that grows uses fulvic acid. So the options for using this product on your farm are quite wide.
Okay, so the first trial we're going to talk about here is an in-furrow treatment of BioLine Gold. And so what this was just a 300 ml per acre of BioLine Gold in furrow. And what we did is we took some samples after 4 weeks. So we have just a picture of the root structure here on our control. We can see on the top right here, like a more, definitely more surface area, even have a 45% increase in root weight. And then if we wanted to look at the total plant as well, we had our sample here as our control, and on the bottom right here, the one that was treated with BioLine Gold at 300 mils per acre. So again, 25% planned increase to really show that a very small amount of our BioLine Gold does show a pretty significant increase on that root development. So we then looked at both the treatment of foliar and in-furrow treatments. In this example, we had sweet corn. So there's some pictures of the actual samples that we harvested. So on the left, we have our control. On the right, we have our BioLine treated. And so what we looked at was the amount of marketable ears, the yield, and then the sugar content. So if we just look at our control values and compare that with our just foliar treatment of BioLine, we do see an increase in marketable yield or marketable ears. We do see a really slight increase in marketable yield in bushels per acre, and we do see a slight increase in the actual sugar content from the corn itself. But what we really saw, a really bang, a really good punch was when we paired the foliar application with our in-furrow at seeding, and so we saw an increase up to 86%. Increase of our marketable ears, an increase up to 108 bushels per acre in our yield, and a very significant increase of the sugar content. So really showing that the addition of both the in-furrow and the foliar application really helps facilitate photosynthesis, facilitate sugar production, but also give us a more marketable cob. We then looked at some soy. So this was just, so the pictures on the top here are just from the in-furrow treatment. Again, similar to 10 ounce per acre. And so again, similar to our corn trials I talked about, we pulled some samples after 4 weeks. So we have our control here, our BioLine treated samples here. We did see an 8% root weight increase, but what's more diagnostic is actually seeing the surface area and those kind of like the more finer details within the root structure from the picture. And then we went on for a foliar application as well. We only have one picture of one of our plants to be harvested. But what we can see is, if we're looking at the number of pods per plant, comparing our control with our BioLine treatment, we have a roughly 20% increase when we're using our BioLine Gold, which is again a 20% increase in our pod weight per plant, and again, which gave us a roughly 19-20% increase, or a 12 bushel per acre increase there. Okay, so yeah, this kind of goes right into our next trial here. And so what we did was we had 80 acres. It was planted on May 30th on clay loam soil soybeans. What we wanted to do was like a one-time foliar application, blending our BioLine Gold at different rates with the glyphosate. And so from the samples that we took from the plots, we saw an increase in the amount of pods per plant when we go up to our 1 liters per acre. And what was most kind of remarkable about this is that we saw a significant increase in the actual yield. So our control itself had around 40 bushels per acre, an increase of 47 to half liter per acre, and an increase to 65 bushels an acre on the 1 liter per acre.
So I was going to say the importance of this is we're the only fulvic product that's going to be on the EPA list approved for use with tank mix with those products. So that's a huge thing.
So now for our hydroponic trials. So what we had here is we had our own controlled setup where we can control all of our nutrient solutions and then know exactly what's going on in those tubs. And so what we had here was just a simple nutrient mix for our control, and then we added in 400 parts per million of BioLine Gold. What we see is after harvest, so at 4 weeks, we see a roughly 20% increase in root weight and a very drastic 133% increase in the yield of basil. We then tried lettuce as well, and we're seeing very, very similar results. We're seeing this drastic increase when we're using our BioLine at 400 ppms. So in our picture top left, we have our control, again, just our standard nutrient solution. Same thing, getting it with 400 ppms of BioLine Gold. And we can see a 47% increase in yield at harvest, and again, almost a 60% increase in the root weight at harvest.